Well. If it isn't my followers. Hi, hello everybody, my name is Offbeat Outlaw. Welcome to another video. If you are new here, hey, sup. And if you are an old-time fan returning, well, sit your ass down. You know I'm a condescending piece of garbage. Recently, I have learned that the term power building, min-maxing, and whatnot, as much as people seem to hate it, no one seems capable of doing it other than me. That's not true. But when I did my last power build review video where I reviewed my fan submissions, 50% of them were garbage in that they were either completely unusable, they relied on magic items, or they just did not know how to read the basic instructions of my rules. So I'm pretty sure that most people at this point don't actually know how to make a good power build and are just, whenever they complain about power builders, they're just citing crazy shit that happened in their D&D games. But you know what? I shouldn't judge. I shouldn't be one to judge. I'm going to instead tell you guys how to actually min-max and power build, because I am, well, frankly tired of reading garbage submissions. If that makes sense? Yeah, let's get to it. I would have thought that, you know, the 11-part series playlist that I have of power builds would have been enough, but no. Let me explain to you how to do a power build. So first of all, when doing a power build, it's important that you use point buy or standard array. Those stats are going to be more comparable between classes. I understand people like doing rolled stats, but on average, you're going to have a higher stat total with rolled stats than with not rolled stats. You can get some insane stats for what you need. You can get like 20s in stats before level 5. So no, don't roll for your stats, use point buy. Step number 2, don't use magic items. If your build requires magic items, that's not a power build, that's your dungeon master giving you cool shit, okay? I don't want to see that. It's not a power build. And if you're a dungeon master and you're complaining about the magic items your players have, that's your fault. You made your bed, now lie in it. Next thing, how do you actually power build with that stuff out of the way? What you need to do is you need to first figure out what you are optimizing for. In several of my builds, I first choose what I'm actually trying to do. I give myself a task and then see if it's accomplishable. Say, for instance, the initiative build. I went, can I get a high initiative? And that's how I got a 19 in initiative with my most attacks in a turn. What is the most number of attack rolls you can make in a single turn? And I figured out it's roughly 16. There's more optimization with Scorching Ray there as well, so that's what I figured out. I gave myself a specific goal, and then I tried to accomplish it. Power builds are not just good D&D characters. That's not what we're looking for. That's not a power build. That could just be a decent D&D character. If you give me a generalist build, that is a generalist character. It's not a power build. It's just good it's pretty mediocre at a lot of things, which is how most D&D characters are, but that's not what I'm looking for in a power build. And that's not what a min-max character is. Min-max characters have faults, hence the min part of min-max. Next thing in a power build, after you've figured out what your goal is, how you actually go about accomplishing that is simple, and a lot of you are not gonna like this. You're gonna have to actually read the goddamn book. I know. Reading the book is hard, but you gotta do it at some point. Look, if you're just a regular D&D player, you can get by with not reading the book and not knowing the rules of the characters. You can get by with your dungeon master dictating everything that you do. However, certainly a lot more fun if you know the rules of the game you're playing. So I would suggest reading this at some point. And reading is not the only way to learn these rules. There are tons of videos online for people who struggle to learn through reading books. But if you can learn via reading books, read the goddamn book! The amount of people I see who just don't have a basic understanding of Dungeons & Dragons making power builds is insane. They don't get how these things actually work, and then they submit builds that are completely illegal. Read the book if you want to make a power build. It's very useful. And don't just read this one either. If you can, read these two as well. They're very useful books. So read those books if you can. They will help you out a lot. And in reading those books, take notes. Write down every single class, feature, ability, and spell that will help you do the thing you're trying to accomplish or in some way pertains to that thing. For instance, when I was trying to see how many different attacks you could get, I wrote down everything that would allow me to make more attack rolls. I wrote down cantrips. I wrote down extra attack features, for instance, the Blade Singers or the Fighters. I wrote down the Gloomstalkers Dread Ambusher feature. I wrote down a haste. I didn't use all of those features, but I still wrote them down because I needed to know. Once you've written all of those down, then you can actually compare and see which of these features can work together, which of these spells can work with these features to make the best thing. That is part of power building. You have to read the book, take notes, put it together. After you've done that, let's say you finally read through the features, you've got a build that you think works going. The next step is to compare it to one of the base classes in D&D. This is a step that a lot of you seem to not do. It's very important that you do this step to figure out if your build's actually powerful or if you're just full of hot air. You gotta compare it to another class. If you're making a single turn damage build, if you can't beat a champion fighter, you're a terrible damage build. Champion fighter can on average do 106 damage every single turn, accounting for crits. If you can't beat 106 damage, you're not a good build. You're not a damage build. I don't know what you are, but it's not damage. And damage builds aren't the only thing you can make. That's just an example. You just have to find an analogous base class. If you're making a skill monkey, can you more reliably achieve that skill than, say, for instance, a rogue? Those are important things to consider, because if your build is worse than just running a main class, you haven't min-maxed, you've min-minned. And the final step, once you've made your build, don't get cocky. I am cocky in my videos because this is somewhat of a character that I play. Is it obnoxious? Yeah, but it's fun, and it allows me to be very confident. However, don't be cocky with your build. If you make your build and plan on playing in a campaign, be open and honest with your dungeon master. Let them know what your build can do and what it should be able to do so that they can plan appropriately. Having a combative relationship with your dungeon master is a surefire way to have a toxic Dungeons & Dragons session. Always be open and honest with your dungeon master about what your build can do and will be able to do. Step number, yeah. And this is just a typical point. When comparing your build to other people's builds, and when trying to convince people that your build is good, don't just extol the virtues of your own character. I make fun of monks a lot in my channel because a lot of monks misuse the monk class. They, for some reason, are convinced that they are the premier damage class, but they're not. At your highest level, do 30 less average damage than a champion fighter. And if you're worse than boring, you shouldn't be that job. Monks are great at being sort of a battlefield support class and being disruptive, but damage is not their strength. If someone says your build could do with improvement, don't just extol your own class's virtues without actually considering whether or not your build could be improved. The amount of people who will just blindly state that their build is the most damage-dealing class, but without actually checking that, is staggering. So if someone says your build can be improved, look at it, genuinely consider if it can be improved. That is the basis of power building. This is basically all I do. I just give myself a task, read the books, do my best. General basis is you gotta beat a pure leveled class at whatever job you're trying to do. If you can't do that, you're not a power build. With that in mind, I hope all of you can take that and make your power builds that much better and that much more potent in future videos of mine, as well as in your future games. Remember, be kind to your dungeon masters. As much as they are trying their best to help you guys in telling a fabulous story. So if you have an insane build, always tell them how much and what it can do. I always tell my dungeon masters, I'll tell you that much. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Get the fuck out of my house.